Moving on to other global stories, let's put the focus on Jerusalem, where the first ever I2U2 Leadership Summit took place. The leaders of the four-nation grouping, that is India, Israel, the United States and the UAE, convened the hybrid summit. The summit took place on the sidelines of President Biden's trip to West Asia, so the US President and Israel's caretaker Prime Minister hosted the summit in Jerusalem. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as well as the UAE President, joined in virtually. The maiden summit focused on joint projects for bolstering economic cooperation under the coalition's framework. The leaders talked about the conceptualization, vision and the key agenda of the grouping.
Thank you for the work you're doing, deepening.
This summit is a clear evidence of the great opportunity for cooperation between countries and economies with shared value and goals centered around peace, tolerance, and prosperity.
Was born several months ago during a dinner at the home of the UAE ambassador in Washington, D.C. We sat around the table and spoke about how, after we get control over the pandemic, anyone trying to go back to how things used to be would fail. Anyone who understands that we live in a new world with new challenges would succeed and flourish. That dinner was on a Wednesday evening. A few days later, in what might be a world record in the field of international relations, my friend Dr. Jaishankar, the Minister of External Affairs of India, was already in my office in Jerusalem. Tony Blinken and Sheikh Abdullah bin Zayed were on Zoom, and we held the first summit of this Quad, the I2U2 Forum.
The challenges we face in the world, our world in the 21st century, demand that we find new ways of working together. Whether it's accelerating climate crisis, dealing with the accelerating climate crisis, which is being felt here in the Middle East every single day, or growing food insecurity and volatile energy markets, made worse by Russia's brutal and unprovoked attack against its neighbor Ukraine. Or, as we've all experienced firsthand over the past 2 years, tackling the health security needs and economic fallout from the global pandemic. All these issues require cooperation and coordination, and none of us can mount a comprehensive response on our own. And the more we work together, the more we'll see the benefits multiply and grow to advance our shared commitment to peace, stability, and growing prosperity. They all go together.
यह सही मायने में स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनर्स की मीटिंग है। हम सभी अच्छे मित्र भी हैं और हम सभी के दृष्टिकोण में हमारे इंटरेस्ट में भी समानता है। एक्सेलेंसीज, योर हाइनेस, आज की इस पहली समिट में से ही I2U2 ने एक सकारात्मक एजेंडा स्थापित कर लिया है। हमने कई क्षेत्रों में ज्वाइंट प्रोजेक्ट्स की पहचान की है और उनमें आगे बढ़ने का रोडमैप भी बनाया है। I2U2 फ्रेमवर्क के तहत हम जल, ऊर्जा, परिवहन, स्पेस, स्वास्थ्य और खाद्य सुरक्षा के 6 महत्वपूर्ण क्षेत्रों में ज्वाइंट इन्वेस्टमेंट बढ़ाने के लिए सहमत हुए हैं।
For more perspective on the agenda of this I2U2 summit and what it means for the countries involved, our principal diplomatic correspondent Siddhant Sibil has sent us this report. Let's listen in.
The first I2U2 or West Asian Quad Summit is over, and it happened in a hybrid format during the visit of the US President Joe Biden to Israel. And India has been at the center of the outcomes, 2 key outcomes. First, on food security, creation of food parks in India, which will be funded by the United Arab Emirates to the tune of $2 billion. And secondly, on clean energy, the announcement of a renewable energy project in India's Gujarat. We know that when it comes to food security, the US President pointed out that how India is a major food provider, and this announcement is going to help the countries in the region, in Indian subcontinent and in West Asia. When it comes to clean technology, we know that both India and Israel have been innovation hub, and this announcement is a win-win for the group members. Now, we know that this group has emerged primarily because of the Abraham Accords, the normalization of relationship between Israel and several Gulf countries, including, of course, UAE, which is a member of this grouping, also known as the West Asian Accord. And there was the mention of how all these four countries support the Abraham Accords and normalization of relationship with Israel. But this grouping will be, of course, something that will form an important feature of the current geopolitics, where we obviously know that there is another quad, that's the Indo-Pacific quad, involving India, Australia, Japan and the US. So India forms a key link, whether it's the West Asian quad or whether it's the Indo-Pacific quad. And today's announcements will go a long way in terms of how the West Asian quad works together in terms of energy, in terms of space, health and other related areas. As the Indian Prime Minister pointed out, that the agenda is progressive and practical, and this grouping, it looks like, will be focusing more on projects that deal with the current issues in terms of the food security, in terms of climate change, and today was a strong indication of that. With video journalist Ajit Siddhansibal for WION in New Delhi.
WION World is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.